What's going on, everybody? It's etaprime back here again. Today we're going to be turning the all-new ROG Ally X into a 1440p gaming machine using one of my favorite new features that Asus has added to the Ally X. So this is the Asus ROG Ally X. I've created a first look video. If you're interested in checking that out, I'll leave a link in the description. This thing has been great. Asus has thrown a lot of great upgrades at it. We've got an 80-watt battery, 24 gigs of RAM, and my favorite addition is USB 4 instead of their older XG mobile port, which means we can easily connect USB 4, Thunderbolt 3, or Thunderbolt 4 eGPUs to this device. On top of that USB 4 port, they've added another USB-C port to this device, giving us a total of 2, and the other one is actually Gen 3.2, but we can always plug in external media to this, and it does come in really handy. This is something I've been wanting to see since the original Ally launched, and hopefully the next Steam Deck does get at least dual USB-C. Having one full-size USB port would also be really nice. But the eGPU dock that we're going to be using today is from a company known as ONEX. This is the ONEXGPU. There are several USB 4 eGPUs on the market. Most of them are utilizing the Radeon RX 7600 MXT. I've tested a few of them, but this one just kind of goes with the whole black Ally X unit, and it's super easy to set up. Basically, I've got the ONEXGPU plugged into the wall, so we've got power out, and it will do 100 watt PD fast charging. From there, we've got HDMI going to my monitor, and of course, we need a USB 4 cable going to the ROG Ally. The stand I have here is just a cheap little $5 stand from Amazon, no electronics in it, just kind of to hold this thing up. And I've already installed the latest AMD driver for the GPU we have here with this external dock. And one good thing about these USB 4 eGPUs is they are hot swappable, so you can unplug them and plug them back in at any given time, unlike Oculink. Now, Oculink would be much faster here, but we don't have that option, and we will have to resort to Thunderbolt 3, Thunderbolt 4, or USB 4. But I'll tell you what, with this eGPU connected to the ROG Ally X, it really does turn it into a full-fledged gaming PC. Now that I've got everything connected, I wanted to give you a look at what I've done here. As you can see, we've got that Ryzen Z1 Extreme. When it comes to memory, the new ROG Ally X has 24 gigs running at 7500 megahertz. As you can see, we're right there at 23.2, and that's because I've actually disabled the internal iGPU. We're strictly just going to be working with this Radeon RX 7600 MXT. Even though I disabled that iGPU, it was still allocating 8 gigs, so what I had to do was enter Armory Crate SE, Settings, Performance, GPU Settings, and from here, I went from 8 to Auto. Out of the box, this is going to be set to 8. Now with this, we've still got access to Armory Crate SE, as you can see. And since this eGPU does 100 watt PD charging out, I'm just able to go all the way up. So from my performance mode here, manual, I've taken the FPPT up to 53 watts. This is going to be our maximum power sustained for 10 seconds. 43 on the SPPT, sustained for 2 minutes. And our SPL, which is going to be our maximum sustained across the board at 30. So this is dock mode here. You can also adjust the fan speed, and you can rename these if you'd like to. Checking this eGPU out with FurMark, we'll go ahead and stress this out. If you take a look at our GPU power, we're right there at 100 watts, but as soon as I enable that turbo button, it's going to jump up to 120. So we've got a sustained 120, and in some cases I have seen this jump up to around 135 in gaming. Doesn't happen that much, and it might be an issue with Afterburner, but yeah, I mean, we should get sustained at 120 here. And the last thing here was that extra drive. So if we go to this PC, this is my 1 terabyte drive that came in the ROG Ally X. This is the 1 terabyte that I have installed in the eGPU. But you could run into a few bandwidth issues because, we're running over USB 4. We need as much as possible. It'll do up to 40 gigs, and, in my experience, it's around 38 sustain. So if you're reading from that drive or writing from that drive at the same time you're using the GPU, you could lower the bandwidth on the GPU. So just keep that in mind. So I've got all of my system RAM free. I've got this thing in dock mode, and I really wanted to see if we could game at 1440p. So let's go ahead and jump into it. The first game we have here is Mortal Kombat 1. I'm at 1440p, high settings, but I do have FSR enabled. I've got it set to balanced right now. Either way, I still think it looks really good at 1440p on this monitor, and we're running at 60 FPS. Another fighting game I tested was Street Fighter 6. That's a pretty easy one to run, and even on the ROG Ally's iGPU, we can run that at medium, 1080, about 18 watts, so 1440 with this setup is not a problem. Next up, we've got Miles Morales, high settings, 1440p with FSR set to balance. The RX 7600 MXT, which we have here with this eGPU, I consider a good 1080 Ultra card or a 1440p high card. Even over USB 4 with a good connection like the ROG Ally offers, we're seeing some amazing performance. So instead of filming the screen here, what I'm going to do is just plug this into my game capture. We can get a better look at everything. I've got a few more games to test. Plus, I wanted to test out fluid motion frames here with a specific game that's always given me issues on these eGPUs. Next game I wanted to test here was Fortnite, and I personally don't play this, but I wanted to throw it in. 1440p high, and it's definitely running really well here. I'm pretty sure we could tweak these settings and run this at a constant 144 with the eGPU connected to the ROG Ally X. Another thing to keep an eye on is that CPU power. Once we get past those boost points, most of the time this is going to be running at 30 watts, and that's with the built-in Armory Crate SE software. But there are third-party apps out there that will allow us to take this up to around 50 continuously. Next on the list, we've got Forza Horizon 5, 1440p, high settings, and I actually thought we'd be seeing much better performance out of this. I'm not using any FSR, and of course that will up that frame rate for us, but I figured we'd be in the hundreds given how well optimized this game is. And I know we're at 1440p on an eGPU running over USB 4, but this is one of those games that just works on everything. Helldivers 2 1440p, high settings with FSR set to balance. Now I'll tell you, if you want to run this at medium with no FSR, you're going to see around the same kind of frame rate we're getting, an average of around 73, and yeah, I mean, this is really playable. Been having a lot of fun with this one on the setup, and just even on the iGPU itself in dock mode, I've been seeing some pretty decent performance, but of course on the iGPU we can't run this at 1440p. We've got that extra GPU power here, and we're still limited because again it's over USB 4, but it really did up that GPU performance. Cyberpunk 2077 was another one I really wanted to test here. We're at 1440p, medium, FSR is set to balance, and we're seeing averages in the upper 70s. I've tested this quite a bit on eGPUs, and in the past we did run into a few issues using Thunderbolt 3 or USB 4 eGPUs, but it looks like a lot of that has been fixed. Not seeing any hitching or anything like that. So I'm pretty impressed with what we've seen so far, but there are some games that just don't like eGPUs. One in the past that really gave me issues when the game first launched was Spider-Man Remastered and even Spider-Man Miles Morales. No matter what Thunderbolt 4 GPU I connected, even an RTX 4090, we were hard-pressed to get over 60. There's a newer game on the market that's kind of given us those same issues right off the bat, and that's Horizon Forbidden West. This was the only game I had to take down to 1080p, and I've never seen really great performance with an eGPU, even over Oculink. So you might notice I've got a different overlay going. This is the AMD overlay because I wanted to show off fluid motion frames here. It's AMD's Frame Gen. So from their software, we can enable it with any game, but you have to have VSync off. It has to be exclusive full screen. And once we enable that, we can basically double the frame rate we were getting. We were seeing an average of around 44 FPS, 1080p, medium, with Frame Gen off. But with Frame Gen on, we're now up in the mid 80s. And yeah, even on ground, looking pretty good. I want to disable this once I get up here just to show you the difference one more time while we're not in the air. But really, this was the only way over an eGPU that I could get up to that 60 mark or past 60. No matter what I did, even taking FSR all the way to performance, we were right under that mark. It's just something with the game and the bandwidth that these eGPUs are putting out. Let's go ahead and turn it off real quick, and I'll show you. It'll drop back down into the mid 40s. and I suspect we're going to see more newer games give us this issue with USB 4 eGPUs. That's why I'm personally really excited about USB 5, and I know the Ally X doesn't have USB 5, but we can definitely expect some handhelds to get those capabilities down the road. First and foremost, I completely understand that the ROG Ally X is a handheld, but I personally do use dock mode quite a bit, even without an eGPU, and I will have a video coming up. We're going to take this as far as we can take that TDP up. I'll be testing some more games there. And another setup that I'd like to show off is NVIDIA, because over the years, I've been doing a lot of testing with AMD and NVIDIA eGPUs over Thunderbolt 3, Thunderbolt 4, and USB 4. Personally, I've seen much better performance out of NVIDIA, and I've got a lot of different cards that I can test here with this Razer dock that I have. It does 100-watt PD charging out, and we can basically put anything in here, even an RTX 4090. So if there's a specific NVIDIA card you'd like to see running on the new ROG Ally X, let me know in the comments below. But that's going to wrap it up for this one. Keep an eye on the channel because I will have more Ally X videos on the way. Right now, we can't run benchmarks on these, but as soon as I can, we will be facing this off against the Steam Deck and the original ROG Ally. If you've got any questions or want to see anything else on this unit, let me know down below. And like always, thanks for watching.